Om Shanti. A warm greeting of peace to all my sisters and my brothers. We are honoring the month of January because this is the time that the founder of the organization, Brahma Baba, actually transitioned to the angelic state. This is how we would describe what happened on the 18th of January, 1969. We didn't see it as a departure. We saw it as a transition. This person who had had the vision and the far-sightedness to create the Brahma Kumaris Spiritual University attained his state of perfection. And the legacy continues. And today, all of us still continue to take inspiration and power from all the things he showed us how to do. I had the good fortune of meeting him several times, first as a child, then in my teenage years, and then as a person who actually recognized who he was as the instrument for the divine. And so this topic today, Journey Beyond Boundaries, it's a topic that's relevant very much today, but Brahma Baba's far-sightedness was such that he could see what was happening then and also know what was going to be relevant in the future. For example, he made sure that there would be equality within the organization. And can you imagine in 1936, the condition of Sindh, which today is in Pakistan? Women were definitely second-class citizens at that time. And the situation is slightly better now, but not so much, at least not in that region. And yet, he understood that if we were to have a brighter, better world, then what he needed to do was to have affirmative action. It was with Nelson Mandela that we started using this term, affirmative action. Brahma Baba started using this term, actually doing it without using that term specifically, in the 30s. So just imagine how far-sighted this man was. He had this understanding that if there could be a better world, it would begin with equality. And so he made sure that the sisters and the mothers who were coming should be trained and given the opportunity of being teachers and leaders. And that system continues today. So all over the world we have mostly sisters in charge. In some places we have brothers, wonderful people, but it's generally sisters as teachers. And in terms of the administrative heads of the organization headquarters in India, it is within the constitution there that women should be given the role of administrative heads. And so that was written decades ago, but that system still continues. But also, there's another ingredient, and so often today we hear of the division of the genders, not just genders, and then also we hear division of generations. And the older generation will say, well, these young people don't know what's going on. We had the X generation, the Y generation, the Z generation. And so they say, well, they don't know what's going on, so we have to be the ones who tell them. And the young ones will say, well, actually, we're the ones who've got our finger on the pulse, and it's the elders who don't know. But to be able to create a state of respect between both, so that the elders give their wisdom, their experience, and their love, and the younger ones know that there's an expertise that is beyond the immediate technological one that they could tap into, and so they treat others with respect. And so it was Brahma Baba's position that there should be respect amongst all. And his own vision for young ones was such that when he started the foundation that was to be the trust that ran the organization, he actually chose, all of them were young women, and he actually chose these individuals who later on were able to continue that legacy right until this point. One example is Dadi Hirdiya Mohini, Dadi Gulzar. And she came to the organization first to the boarding school when she was 7, and then later when her mother surrendered when she was 9. She was with her mother at that time because she wanted to be with Brahma Baba and the others. And she today is the head of the organization. And so somebody who came 9 years old and surrendered and today is still leading the organization. And so it's an indication of how Brahma Baba recognized the potential of the young ones. And Dadi Gulzar shares a very interesting story. She says that all her education was basically through the ashram. There was a school set up, the Om Mandli school. And then further on also there would be those who were a little older, maybe 15, 16 years old, who would be teaching the younger ones who were 9, 10 years old. And the system worked very well. And of course, they weren't being trained to pass GSCEs or degrees or anything like that, but a solid background. And she remembers the love with which they used to be taught and the trust that they experienced from the elders to them, and the caring concern that Brahma Baba and the mother of the organization had for the young ones. And she says that one day Brahma Baba told us, "You're going to serve the world." And she said, at that point, I hadn't even understood what the map of the world looks like. And of course, later on, when she became, prior to becoming the head of the organization, for many years, she was one of the key people working with the heads of the organizations. And she traveled the globe, not just once, several times. And she would smile and say, well, I've learned my geography from travel. But this was the thing that Baba trusted them and said to them, you're going to serve the world. And that stayed in their hearts and minds. And they prepared themselves to be able to do this. Now, those are two examples. Brahma Baba going beyond the boundary of gender, and Brahma Baba going beyond the boundary of age. Now, let's bring it to the present, and let me see how I can also learn to do the same. Because still today, the glass ceiling for women exists. It is a reality. Even organizations that profess to have equality or say they would like to have equality don't quite manage it. There might be a handful, no more than that. But generally speaking, we find that these two big divisions exist in a big way. But also the third one, and that is race. And Black Lives Matter. Well, just think about this title. Of course they matter. And why is it that we needed to bring in this title? Because for some people in this world, in the 21st century, they don't matter. And that's a very sad situation of humanity. And so it's important to be aware. Black Lives Matter. Every human soul is precious and valuable. And so how did Brahma Baba come to that awareness where for him there was that sense of equality and the desire for justice in this way? He practiced all the spiritual teachings that he was learning from the divine. And the first and foremost of these was to see everyone, not by their position, not by their age, not by their gender, not by their possessions, or by the color of their skin. He would teach us to see the soul. He himself was practicing this absolutely. And so when he started his own journey, he had already prepared himself with his spirituality, with his love for God, his love for meditation. So he'd been doing all this for most of his life. But now, as the knowledge of God was gradually being revealed to him and to others who were listening, he began to practice all of these things. So, can I not see the face or all these other factors that I've mentioned? Can I see just simply the light that's shining in the center of the forehead? And if I can do that, yes, that'll be a huge, huge step in the journey of going beyond boundaries. So often we don't realize what it is we're caught up with. You know, it's like the bird doesn't even know that it's in a cage. And so even when the cage door is opened, the bird doesn't know that it could fly out and be free. But it's in the comfort zone of its own cage. Food is provided, water is provided, and the little bird is comfortable. So why should it bother about what's going on out there? And so sometimes we grow up in a culture in which we learn many good things, very good things that creates our personality. But within every culture, there are also certain limitations and belief systems that may or may not be true. And so they become part of our personality also. When a child is born, it doesn't know about gender. And then gradually, it's instilled within that child. You are a boy, you are a girl. And certain preconceptions are passed on to that child. A girl should, shouldn't, a boy should and shouldn't. And so some of those might be helpful in terms of keeping a balance of a system in society or certain norms, but also very deeply within the root of consciousness, these beliefs become a barrier. And so where there's a hierarchy of race, and definitely this exists in most countries, there is a hierarchy of color, there is a hierarchy of race, there is a hierarchy of gender. All of these things are still today a reality. And Brahma Baba, practicing the teaching of just see the soul, don't see anything else at all, was able himself to go beyond that limit and that boundary, was able to go beyond even the personalities of people and the cultures that they were caught up with. He practiced soul consciousness. So my journey to go beyond boundaries has to be the same. I have to go deep into myself, understand myself as a being of light. First is the understanding, can I separate soul and body? Am I aware that the soul is separate from this, from my skin, or this body that I occupy? Of course it is. The thinking, feeling, experiencing, remembering, aware being is not this physical body. The brain? No. The brain is the hardware. The software is the soul that carries within itself all of these various experiences. And so, can I stabilize my consciousness in that awareness rather than anything to do with this? And if I can, I'll find how beautiful it is. I'll be able to relate to every human being and know that they're my brother. The world is my family. We have one parent, the Supreme. And all of us, you can either say brother in the sense of the soul has no gender, but yet the proactive state would be the brother. So let me use that term. We are one family, we are brothers, but then that's on the level of soul. And then on the level of the human being, we are brothers and sisters. And that also is a very, very beautiful way to relate to others. My family. When I say my family, am I talking about the 4 nuclear members of my family? Or am I talking about the bigger family? Really, the unlimited family. You know, there's a brother here, and when he talks about family, you know who he's talking about? On the spiritual level, the whole world. But he kept introducing me over the years. This is my brother, this is my sister. And I would say, well, finally, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Because at first I just took it on face level, that, you know, that this is his blood connection, brother and sister. And then I understood that he was talking about brother and sister for everyone from his village in India, in Gujarat. And so, can you imagine the nuclear family, and then the extended family, and then the whole village? And the whole village is my brother or sister. But now the whole village is the global village. And so everyone in the global village is my brother and sister. And so can I have that awareness? I can, if I'm based in my own awareness of the soul, and then I look out and see the world and see everyone else as my family also. And the reality is this: Brahma Baba was totally aware that geography was not a boundary. It was only a question of my own consciousness. And so when he was sitting in Karachi, for example, in the very early days, when it was maybe about 10 brothers and 300 plus sisters, he would be talking about serving the world. And these people that he was talking to were not just all from India. At that time, it was a combined India, but he was actually talking to the people from the community of one province, Sindh. That's it. There was one other person from Gujarat, but that was it. All the others were from that same community where they'd all grown up together and mostly knew each other quite well. And so Brahma Baba's far-sighted vision of being able to see a world in which everybody would have that consciousness of being one family, and also helping us to go beyond all these other boundaries, was incredible. He mastered this very fast, so that as soon as the organization started, people who were coming all felt that they belonged. And now today we hear about the soul, we think about the soul, but we don't always practice this awareness. And for Brahma Baba, it was natural, just the constant awareness of this is who I am, and so this is who is everyone else. And I was talking about culture and how not only is a child imbued with this awareness of male and female, but a 2-year-old child will make friends with everyone, no question of division of race. And it's only through whatever is instilled within that child's understanding that then the division of race comes in. And so by the age of maybe 3 and 4, there is a big division. But prior to that, there was no division. And so by the time a child goes to primary school, that division has already been instilled. And so today, as adults, for us to change our awareness and see the soul is absolutely vital. But also, whatever it is we do, the young ones, the little ones in our family will learn to do the same. If I treat everybody as that living being with very special characteristics of peace and love and truth, and I connect with them on that level with respect and regard, the young ones in my family, the little ones, are all going to do the same. Culture is created first and foremost in the family, and then is translated into school, and then later, of course, comes into the community. And so the starting point is me. And so when I change, then I can help the others in my family also change and understand how it is they need to behave. So Baba's journey going beyond boundaries was absolutely exceptional. And so today, the result of that is an organization where it's women who are in charge and are the leaders, but also it's an organization that spans the globe because people of all religions and all traditions are part of the same family. I remember Robert Muller, who at that time was the head of ECOSOC in the United Nations. ECOSOC is the Economic Social Council. And he was head of ECOSOC, and his position was Assistant Secretary General. And he was very close to the Brahma Kumaris family in New York and also to Dadi Janki. And when he came to Mount Abu in 1983, he came for the opening of our new auditorium, Om Shanti Bhavan. And when he looked around and he saw people of all races, all backgrounds and all cultures, and all meditating together, communicating together, eating together, working together in different ways, he said, well, this is the United Nations University. And I think the university in Tokyo and in Costa Rica, definitely the one in Costa Rica came later, but I think even Tokyo hadn't yet been completed. But he said that, well, the United Nations already has a university right here, because that's what he was seeing, the collaboration of everyone with love and respect. And so can I see, when I look into myself, what are the barriers that still hold me back? Age? Do I think, well, I'm too old for this? Or sometimes are others thinking I'm too young for this? So different perspectives, but in fact, the soul is immortal. If I tell you that age 92, in the last year of Brahma Baba's life, Baba would still be walking in the mountains. Baba would still be going around the whole ashram, just showing his presence, not checking everything was going on well, and he knew that, but just to be present, whether it was the building site where a new hall was being constructed, whether it was the kitchen where Baba just wanted to give that sense of belonging to the people serving there. And Baba would just meet them with a greeting in his eyes and give them that love through his vision. Some of you know that we call this drishti, the vision of soul consciousness and God consciousness, in which I see another with that vision of being a soul. So he would go to the kitchens and he would give drishti, he would go into the gardens and meet the gardener there. He wasn't static, he wasn't immobile, 92. He was still moving around. More than that, he was conducting classes, conducting meditation, having meetings, personal meetings, small gatherings, inspiring and caring and sharing. So today, when people say, when will you retire? I say, well, Brahma Baba never retired, Dadi Janki never retired. And those of you who know her know that 103, she was here in London, and then 104, she flew away. But until the very end, active and alert and engaged in service. And so, no, I'm not ready to retire yet. Daddy used to say age 90. I'm not tired. Why should I retire? And so age is not a barrier. You can still do all the things that you've been dreaming of and achieve all the things that you personally would like to do in your life. Gender, it's the impression that society has imposed on me that makes me say, but how can I do this? And of course, this is more to do with the older generation rather than the younger one. I don't think younger ones are inhibited by the gender factor in terms of what they aspire to do. But yet, of course, the glass ceiling in the world of commerce or even in the world of politics and everywhere else still exists in a very strong way. But as a woman, I know that when I was 18, I wanted to go to university, but I wasn't able to get the first choice because they said to me, well, we spend X amount of money training you, and then you go away and say you want a family and you want to have children. And so the time and money we've spent in training you gets lost. Now, this was in 1967 when I was applying for medicine at London hospitals, university hospitals. The ratio at that time was 1 to a bigger number. I think 1 in 20. That's right. It was 1 in 20 women who were being accepted for medical training by the London university hospitals. So we've come a long way from there. But at that moment, I thought to myself, they haven't even asked me whether I'm thinking about a family. And already at that point, my determination was that I wanted to serve the world. And I wasn't interested in creating a family. And so if they'd had the patience to listen, I would have told them that. But they'd already decided. And so I faced discrimination, both in terms of gender, especially also later, not early days in London in the 50s and 60s, but definitely in the 70s and beyond, racial discrimination also. But I know that the training that I'd had in spirituality from a very early age, and then the actual experience of all of this was able to carry me beyond all of these limitations. In fact, I never allowed the question of gender to come in, even before I started the path of meditation, because I knew that whatever it is I would like to achieve, and my goal was to serve the world, and what better way to serve the world than spirituality? And so everything has a silver lining. And so the fact that London hospitals weren't interested, very good. I looked around to see what other opportunity there could be, and I found the best in the world, absolutely the best. And so I know that if I have the courage, if I have the faith, and if I maintain that consciousness and I take my mind beyond the boundaries that society is imposing, I can achieve whatever it is I choose. An amazing example in our times now is Greta Thunberg. And she alone, with that inspiration, I am going to make a stand for the environment. And she decided all alone that she wouldn't go to school on Fridays, and a whole wave of a revolution for the environment began with one individual, a woman, a young woman, powerful. And so today I know that it's possible to go beyond all the boundaries that the mind tells us, no, you cannot, no, this isn't possible. But no, especially in that awareness of the soul, one can go beyond all boundaries. Apart from all these external boundaries, I want to talk a little bit about the inner boundaries. We all have a unique personality, and no two personalities are the same. There can be twins who look alike, but actually the personalities are different. I know a set of twins who are now in their 50s, I think, maybe 60s even, but I know that it's still difficult to distinguish them from their features, but when they start speaking, I know which one it is. Definitely. Personalities are absolutely unique. And so, my personality, and which aspect of my personality is it that has become a boundary or a barrier for me? And I would suggest that it's the weaknesses of our personality that become the boundaries, and we're not able to traverse those. One example, a very easy example that one can identify very quickly. One particular weakness that seems to be on the increase at the moment in the world now is anger. And some people will justify it in saying, but what about righteous anger? And what Brahma Baba used to say, if the cause is righteous, how can you use unrighteous methods to be able to achieve what it is you want? And so, for example, I'm interested to have peace in the world. But if I say, I'm going to fight for peace, is that possible? The path that I tread today is going to lead me to the destination. So can I really, truly fight and expect that there's going to be peace? Well, it hasn't happened yet anywhere in the world. But what is possible, I use the power of non-violence, and yes, peace can then come. And I'm not just thinking about Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, of course, he was a leader, but I'm also thinking about Martin Luther King. I'm also thinking about the current situation where in so many different places, people are still fighting wars and thinking that this is going to lead to peace. But that's not a reality. But the power of non-violence, the power of forgiveness, yes, these things can lead to peace. But of course, many other situations, but fighting for justice is not just, is not righteous, and so will not lead to a state of justice and righteousness and a better and brighter future. And so if today, that's the sort of big picture, the macro picture for the world, but if I look at myself today, what is it that's making me get angry? And probably it's because my ego has been hurt, my desires have been unfulfilled, and also probably because I wanted control and I wanted things to happen in a certain way, and they're not happening like that. And so my weakness, my anger is creating problems for me, and the boundaries that I'm setting myself is that I say, well, it's who I am. I am an angry person. Or if not anger, I know I get quickly irritated. I am an irritable person. And I accept that, and I think that I have to live with that till the end of my days. Not true. What Brahma Baba demonstrated to us was that the power of yoga, and yoga means the connection of the self with the divine. When you experience this power that comes to you from God, then that power is able to make you hold your tongue. You know, we say count 10. Okay, count at least 5, if not 10. But that power gives me the capacity to be able to take a pause at that moment, and instead of a reactive response, a considered response becomes possible. I take that power of peace, the power of love, and now with peace, with patience, I'm able to approach the situation differently, and that'll make a huge difference. Why? Because if there's just action and reaction, that action-reaction story is infinite. It can never stop. One individual within that situation has to say, I'm going to stop. Otherwise, I say one thing, the other says 10 things, I say 20 things, and the multiplication grows and the heat becomes more and more intense. And something that started as something quite tiny is now blown up out of all proportion. Now, do I want to do that? Is that going to help me? Well, just look at what happens to your physical body. If you've been through that episode of action, reaction, and more and more and more of the same. My blood pressure has risen. My heart is beating faster. My adrenaline has risen. Everything is out of sync in my physical body. And if there's been 1 minute of anger, it'll take me 5 minutes for the body to come back to a state of equanimity. If I've had 10 minutes, it's not just a linear escalation, but it's exponential escalation. And so 10 minutes of anger, or even 5 minutes of anger, and the 5 minutes is going to lead to maybe 20 minutes for my mind and body to be settled. And if the anger is beyond that, who knows how long it's going to take. But this we know from our own experience. And so my anger is not helpful for the other, even though I might be doing it with the right motive. But the method I've chosen to use is not right. If I look inside, then I'll say, okay, can I deal with this differently? And this is what Baba taught us. Baba himself never, ever had anger. Literally never. And I'm talking about the experiences of those who knew him as children, his own children, but also the experience of all these dadis, our seniors, who lived with him for 33 years. Never any anger. Why? Baba knew that the way to move forward was love. The way to move forward was compassion. Something's wrong? Sit down kindly and explain to the other what is it that's not right. And if you take the time and the trouble and you have that loving attitude of support and help for the other, they will understand and they will change. For sure they will change. I've picked up on just one particular aspect of the limits that we put around our personality and the thought that, well, I was born this way, I've lived this way, and I'll be this way till the end of my days. No, I don't have to do that. What I can do is learn the spiritual techniques that Brahma Baba taught us. And when I do that, then I feel the changes happening within me. And not only is it good for my mind or my heart, it's also very good for the atmosphere. It's also very good for the other, because through my keeping peace, here's a situation, and I stay calm, I approach it with peace. Either within a short time or a long time, the other individual is going to understand and say, yes, it should be like this, rather than what I was saying earlier. Because give a person a space in which they can reflect, and that reflection usually brings them to the right consciousness. But we don't usually give ourselves time for this. Another thing that I'm totally aware of when we're talking about going beyond boundaries, how do I increase my inner capacity to be able to transform myself, transform a situation, and also transform others within that situation too? Am I able to do this? And yes, indeed, what I need to do is to make time for silence for myself, make time to be able to have that relationship with the divine in which truly I am able to take that love, that power, and then I can start giving and I'm able to do something for others. Brahma Baba demonstrated this compassionate part of his nature in a very beautiful way. Generosity. Where does generosity come from? Generosity comes from having a big heart, a clean heart, a pure heart, an altruistic heart. And Brahma Baba's generosity enabled 350 people to live together as a community for 14 years. Can I look after a community of 2 or 3? My little family is a community unit. That's the first step of community family. Am I able to look after 3 or 4 people and provide for all their needs? Brahma Baba did. And not just 3 or 4, but 350 for a period of 14 years, after which they started to go out to other places. But during that period of 14 years, and maybe a tiny bit more after that, the construction of buildings had started to happen in Abu, at our headquarters. And Baba would say, you know where Baba lived? Baba lived in a stable. The first original house on the property that we had was a stable. Now, how thick or thin are the walls of a stable? And when it was winter, Abu in those days would have freezing temperatures, below freezing. So in the morning, the staff would bring plates of ice to show Baba, this is what's happened, because it was a normally very dry climate, especially in winter, but they would keep out little plates so that then they could gather the ice and show Baba the next day. That's how cold it was. And the new buildings, some of them were ready by the time Baba was still around. And we'd say to Baba, come and stay in those buildings. You'll be much more comfortable. You'll be much warmer. And Baba would say, no, these are for the children. This room that I have, and it was a tiny little room, is very fine for me. What do I need to do? I need to just sit and meditate and sleep. That's it. So I don't need to have those rooms. You children can have them. So that compassionate heart, that kind heart, that generous heart came from that spirit of altruism, going beyond my personal needs. Because my personality creates boundaries like the anger, but also my desires, my needs. I want this, I need this, I must have this. And I'm not thinking of anybody else at all. I'm just thinking about number one. But Baba showed us that if you feel inner happiness and inner contentment that comes from the divine, then you'll always say, I have enough. I have sufficient. I don't need anything else at all. Daddy Janki came to London with just enough clothes to fit into a little travel bag. And we would ask her, Daddy, what should we get you to make you more comfortable? And she'd say, but I have everything I need. There's nothing more that I need. And so when I feel the inner contentment and God's love, then the heart is really full and satisfied. Then in that condition, I don't want for myself, but what I have, I want to share with others. And it could be material, it could be physical. During COVID, many demonstrated how they were able to give time, they were able to give their skills, and they were able to maybe cook food, maybe drive the people who were cooking around, or maybe drive the trayfuls of food that had been prepared to be able to serve at a hospital, to be able to give away to the street people who had nowhere else to go. So that compassion and kindness exists in all of us. But sometimes it's demonstrated, sometimes the I factor comes in, but I need for myself, I need for my nuclear family. And Brahma Baba sacrificed everything he had for others. Brahma Baba was able to share with others absolutely everything he had, didn't keep anything for himself, and so going beyond the limits of my own desires and selfishness. That's another boundary that Baba taught us to cross. And so today, can I say, I am content. I have all that I need. And then, whatever else comes, I want to give away. I want to distribute. I want to share with those in greater need. And so mercy and compassion also are traits that indicate that a person has gone beyond boundaries, beyond barriers. You know, we are told, love thy neighbor as you would love yourself by the Testament. And how much do I love myself? That's one question. I don't know myself, and so I don't know how to love myself. That's one thing. But the other is where I can love certain neighbors, but I can't love all my neighbors. Maybe their personalities, maybe their age, maybe their color, different things. And I'll say, no, this is enough. Just these few people around me is sufficient. But God has told me, love all your neighbors as you would love yourself. And so when there's a need, can I join a gathering and add my voice to that? Of course, you're going to have to wait till whenever gatherings are possible. But my point that, do I have sufficient compassion to see everyone as my neighbor and to be able to reach out to them and support them and help them? Maybe with a kind smile, maybe with time and energy, something that will indicate to them that I am concerned about them and I'm able to give them the time that they would like, even if it's just a short time. So I'm seeing how at this moment it's absolutely vital to make this journey beyond all boundaries and to feel how free I can be. Imagine if my age restricts me or my gender restricts me. I feel very much in a jail. I'm bound in. But when I've learned it's possible to go beyond all these boundaries with a shift of perception and coming back here to the awareness of the soul, then I know that, yes, I can be truly free. And yes, of course, it's nice to support, nice to help, nice to engage, but I'll make sure that I'm making time for myself first. Mahatma Gandhi had a lot of time, some in prison, some out of prison. Nelson Mandela had a huge amount of time, but other prisoners didn't necessarily look at it that way. They saw it as deprivation. And Mandela saw this as opportunity. What can I do to serve my people? And of course, then magic steps in. When I go beyond the limited barriers of I and my and mine, God's help kicks in. And amazing things happen as a result of that pure, undivided, unconditional love. So enjoy that time of silence for yourself, with yourself, company to be able to benefit from you, myself. And then, yes, many, many other barriers that come your way will all be overcome. Let's have a few minutes of meditation now. I go inwards and I see myself as a being of light. Although I'm going inside, I'm actually also going on another journey. that takes me outside. But when I go in, I see beauty within the soul. I see beauty in the world outside. I see the beauty of the spirit. And in this awareness, the qualities of the spirit within are enhanced. When I ignore something, then the beauty gets hidden. I'm not aware of it. But when I recognize myself as a soul, I recognize how I really need to look inside and know myself more and more. And so I decide to spend time with myself and increase. I increase my capacity to be able to know myself. And in this knowing, I know what I need to do to liberate myself. And I feel free. I leave behind all the things of the physical dimension and appreciate the things within. And my heart gives gratitude to the One above who has given me this opportunity and filled so much of the soul with all that it needs, so that now I can give and give and give. I hold this awareness. I, the soul, connected with the divine, the supreme. And as I give, I receive blessings from above and all those who are being served, filled with blessings. I come back to the awareness of the physical dimension. But even as I do that, I carry all the gifts received from God with myself. Om Shanti. Thank you.